Have you ever wondered why some of the simplest ancient rituals seem to carry a kind of silent wisdom that science still struggles to explain? Take, for instance, the strange yet fascinating advice once given by Edgar Cayce, the so-called sleeping prophet. He suggested that rubbing garlic on the soles of your feet before sleep could not only affect the body, but also cleanse the spirit. To the modern mind, this sounds almost mythical, perhaps even absurd. But beneath this humble act lies a deeper question. What if the body itself is a sacred doorway to the soul? When Cayce spoke of garlic, he wasn't merely referring to a pungent bulb found in kitchens. He was invoking an ancient symbol, one that has appeared across cultures as both medicine and talisman. Garlic was believed to repel darkness, not only from the flesh but from the unseen realms. Ancient Egyptians placed it in tombs to protect the dead on their journey. In medieval Europe, it was hung above doors to ward off what could not be named. And in Cayce's own vision, it was an anchor of light for those navigating invisible storms of energy, emotion, and fear. If you pause for a moment, the idea becomes less about garlic and more about attention. What does it mean to anoint one's own body before resting? What happens when, instead of collapsing into sleep as if into oblivion, we treat the act of resting as sacred preparation, a nightly return to the divine? Every ritual, no matter how simple, is a language that the soul understands. When you rub garlic on your feet, you're not just applying a substance, you are sending a message. I am aware. I honor the bridge between what I can see and what I cannot. Our feet, so ordinary, so often ignored, are, in truth, profound instruments of connection. They are the roots through which we draw energy from the earth, carrying us through every journey, every chapter of existence. Cayce often spoke of the human body as a temple of vibration, a vessel where spiritual energy circulates like currents in a river. And the feet, he said, are the gates through which these currents enter and exit. Imagine then that each night, when the world quiets, we cleanse those gates, letting the flow of divine energy restore balance before another dawn. There's also a poetic logic here. Garlic, rich in its sharpness and purity, becomes a metaphor for clarity, for light that pierces the fog of unseen burdens. Many of us carry exhaustion that isn't physical. We go to bed tired not from movement, but from the weight of unspoken worries, unshed tears and unfinished thoughts. Perhaps Cayce's forgotten ritual wasn't about medicine at all, but about mindfulness, a tactile reminder that care begins with awareness. When we rub something as raw and living as garlic against the skin, we awaken to our own aliveness. We remind ourselves that healing is not something done to us, but through us. There's something beautifully human in that. To take an object from the earth, a root grown in silence, and use it to bless the body before rest. It's an act of humility, an acknowledgement that the same intelligence that makes a seed sprout also moves through us. Cayce believed that the soul is nourished not only by faith, but by simple intentional acts that harmonize spirit and matter. In his view, garlic was a conductor, a bridge, like incense rising between the human and the divine. What if this ritual is less about superstition and more about remembering our own forgotten language of reverence? The ancients didn't separate the physical from the spiritual as we do today. To them, every touch, every herb, every gesture had meaning. The modern world has taught us to intellectualize the sacred, to seek proof instead of presence. But rituals like this one invite us to return, not to believe blindly, but to feel, to inhabit the mystery rather than to solve it. And maybe that's what Cayce wanted most, to remind us that protection is not merely about keeping something out, but about keeping something in. Our peace, our alignment, our quiet connection with the divine flow. The garlic, pungent and earthly, becomes a symbol of boundaries. It teaches that purity is not the absence of the world, but the strength to walk through it uncorrupted. When you anoint your feet, you are declaring, I walk in light. I carry clarity wherever I go. As you close your eyes and drift into sleep, the faint scent lingers, a reminder that healing can be humble, that the sacred often hides in the ordinary. That perhaps even in the smallest gestures, we are reawakening something ancient within ourselves, something that whispers softly through the body, waiting for us to listen. When we look beyond the surface of Cayce's ritual, we begin to see that every ancient practice, from the laying on of hands to the burning of herbs, carries a secret truth about energy and intention. Science calls it biology, mystics call it vibration, but perhaps both are speaking of the same invisible current, the subtle language through which the body and soul communicate. Cayce often said, "Spirit is the life, mind is the builder, and the physical is the result." To understand this ritual, we must see garlic not as a remedy, but as a symbol in motion, a way for the mind to build harmony between the unseen spirit and the tangible body. Think about what happens when you touch your own feet with care. You are grounding yourself, literally reconnecting with the earth. The soles of the feet are rich with nerve endings and reflex points. They mirror every organ of the body. When touched intentionally, they awaken energy that travels upward, like the first spark that lights a sacred lamp. This is not fantasy, it's the language of presence. Most of us rush through the day as if our bodies were machines, useful but unnoticed. Yet Cayce's teaching reminds us that when we touch the body with reverence, we awaken the soul's awareness within it. The garlic, with its warmth and its natural vitality, simply becomes the messenger. There's an ancient wisdom in this. In many traditions, the feet symbolize humility and service. To wash, anoint, or bless them was always a sacred act. Jesus washed the feet of his disciples not as a gesture of cleanliness, but of deep spiritual alignment, a recognition that the path each of them would walk was divine. In India, touching the feet of a teacher is still an act of receiving blessing because the feet are believed to hold the residue of the teacher's journey, the dust of enlightenment. Cayce's ritual echoes this lineage. To care for one's own feet is to recognize that one's journey too is holy. It is to honor the miles your soul has walked, the pain it has endured, and the light it continues to seek. But there's another layer, quieter yet profound. Garlic, when crushed or sliced, releases allicin, a compound known for its healing properties. It's as though the plant only reveals its power when it's broken open. Isn't that the same with us? Often our strength, our wisdom, our compassion emerge only after something within us has been cracked. A heartbreak, a loss, a letting go. Cayce's teaching invites us to see the act of rubbing garlic not as applying medicine, but as a sacred reminder that from what is crushed, healing arises, that within every wound lies a fragrance of awakening, and then comes the night, the moment of surrender. When you perform this ritual and lie down to rest, something subtle happens, not outside but within. The scent of garlic lingers, grounding you, drawing you inward. The body begins to soften, the breath slows, and in that stillness, you cross a threshold. The conscious mind fades, but the spirit remains alert, receptive. Cayce believed that sleep was not an absence of awareness, but a return to the source, a nightly meeting between the soul and its higher self. By preparing the body with care, you are signaling to the soul, the path is clear, the temple is clean, the vessel is ready for communion. Perhaps this is why so many ancient cultures viewed sleep as a sacred state. The Egyptians called it the rehearsal for eternity. The Greeks saw dreams as messages from the divine. Cayce himself entered deep trance through sleep, allowing the higher mind to speak through him. What if the ritual of garlic was, at its heart, a preparation for that sacred descent, a way to protect the soul as it travels the invisible realms of the night? In that sense, the garlic becomes both shield and key. It guards the soul's passage, but also unlocks the door to deeper awareness. It's tempting to dismiss such rituals as superstition, but superstition is merely spirituality, stripped of understanding. Ritual, when done consciously, is a bridge between worlds, a way to teach the mind to listen again. Modern life has taught us to seek solutions outside ourselves, to trust data over intuition, but the ancients trusted the conversation between flesh and spirit. They knew that the smallest act, done with full presence, could realign the universe within. That's what Cayce's garlic ritual truly represents. Not a cure, but a conversation, a dialogue between your physical being and your eternal essence. And maybe that's why this practice, forgotten by most, still calls to us today, because deep down we remember what it means to tend to the soul through the body, to anoint ourselves not out of fear of darkness, but out of love for light, to prepare for rest not as escape, but as return. Every touch, every breath, every gesture becomes a prayer without words, a reminder that the sacred doesn't demand grand temples or complex theology. It asks only for attention, and for the courage to believe that even in something as humble as garlic, the universe is whispering, "I am here." So when you think of this ritual again, this simple act of rubbing a clove upon your feet, try not to see it as strange. See it as remembering, as placing your hands upon your own life and saying, "I am present." For in that moment, you are not following an old teaching. You are reawakening one. You are reminding your soul of a truth it has always known, that the path to light begins where your body meets the earth. Perhaps what makes Edgar Cayce's forgotten ritual so powerful is not the garlic itself, but what it represents. A return to intimacy with our own spirit. In a world that rushes endlessly toward what is next, we have lost the art of sacred simplicity. We have forgotten how to meet ourselves in silence. Yet in the quiet act of rubbing garlic on the soles of the feet before sleep, there is a reawakening, a remembering that healing begins not with doing, but with being. The ritual becomes a mirror of our inner state. Are we rushing, distracted, or are we present enough to touch our own existence with reverence? Cayce believed that all disease, all imbalance, began not in the body, but in the disconnection between body, mind, and soul. He often described illness as a misalignment of the spiritual current, as though the body were an instrument that had simply gone out of tune. If this is true, then rituals like this one are not medical treatments, but spiritual recalibrations. When you take the time to anoint your feet, you are telling your whole being that it is safe to rest, that harmony is possible again. You are tuning the strings of your inner instrument, allowing the melody of peace to play once more. Let us think about what the feet symbolize in a more mystical sense. They are the meeting point of heaven and earth. The soul, ethereal and infinite, resides within a body that must touch the ground. The feet are the translators between the divine and the material. Every step we take is a statement of trust. Trust that the earth will hold us. Trust that we can move forward even without knowing where the path ends. Cayce's ritual honors this connection. By touching the feet, we touch the threshold between two worlds. We acknowledge that our journey through the physical is not a punishment or an illusion, but a sacred pilgrimage of the spirit made flesh. There is also a hidden lesson in the very choice of garlic. Unlike precious oils or perfumes, garlic is humble, found in every kitchen, available to all. Its power lies not in rarity, but in authenticity. It doesn't mask, it purifies. It doesn't charm the senses, it awakens them. In many traditions, garlic was seen as a protector, not because it was mystical, but because it was pure life condensed into form. It carries the scent of the earth, the fire of the sun, the memory of growth. When you crush it, it releases its essence immediately, as though eager to serve. What a beautiful reflection of the soul's own desire to give itself fully once it has been broken open by experience. Imagine this. Each night as you prepare to sleep, you perform this ritual not as a superstition, but as a conscious act of reconnection. You sit quietly, peel a clove, and in that simple gesture you are already slowing the rhythm of the day. You crush it gently, feeling its warmth, its oil, its life. You apply it to your feet, not hurriedly, but with gratitude. Gratitude for all the steps that have carried you here, for the unseen forces that have guided you, even when you stumbled. You whisper silently to yourself, "I release the weight of today. I walk now in peace." The smell fills the room, earthy and strong, grounding you in the reality of the present moment. Your breath deepens, the mind softens. What you are performing is not a ritual of garlic, it is a ritual of awareness. And awareness, Cayce would say, is the true medicine. He taught that the body responds instantly to the vibration of thought, that what we believe, we become. So the garlic on your feet becomes a physical expression of a spiritual intention. I choose light. It's not the clove that protects your soul, it's the consciousness that moves through your hands as you use it. The act becomes a declaration to the unseen world that you are not asleep to your own divinity. You are awake, aware, and aligned. In many ways, this forgotten ritual teaches us to return to the sacred in the ordinary. We spend our days searching for grand answers, in temples, in philosophies, in distant teachers, while the divine hides in the kitchen, waiting in the simplicity of a clove of garlic. This is the paradox of the soul's path. Enlightenment is not found in escaping the human experience, but in fully embracing it. When Cayce spoke of protecting the soul, he was not warning against demons or spirits. He was guiding us to protect our light from the subtle erosion of forgetfulness, from the numbness that comes when we stop living with awareness. Every night, as the body rests and the spirit travels, the garlic becomes a reminder that we are both fragile and infinite. Its scent, so earthly, keeps us grounded, while its symbolism lifts us beyond the veil of the visible. It teaches us that spiritual protection is not a shield, but a state of alignment. When we live in truth, when our thoughts are pure and our intentions kind, nothing dark can cling to us. The garlic, then, is only a symbol, a simple flame reminding the soul of its own radiance. And so when you hear the name Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, perhaps think of him not as a man who performed miracles, but as one who remembered. He remembered that the universe speaks in whispers, that healing comes not from grand gestures but from humble devotion. He remembered that light does not fight darkness, it simply shines. And through this ritual, he offered us a way to do the same, to let our every act, however small, be an offering to that eternal light that lives within and around us. In the end, the ritual of garlic is not about the past or about Cayce himself. It is about you, about the invitation to return to your own sacred rhythm, to rediscover the holiness of touch, and to honor your body as the temple through which your soul experiences eternity. In the quiet stillness that follows the ritual, when the scent of garlic fades into the night air and the body rests in silence, something extraordinary happens. It is not loud or dramatic. It is subtle, like a candle flickering in a vast cathedral. The soul, sensing that it has been acknowledged, begins to expand. It no longer feels trapped within flesh and thought. It breathes through you. And in that moment, you realize that the purpose of this ancient act was never to protect you from darkness, but to remind you that the light was never gone. Cayce's wisdom, though often clothed in mystical language, always pointed to one timeless truth. The spirit needs care as much as the body. Protection, as he described it, was not a defense against something external, but an alignment with what is eternal. The garlic, the ritual, the touch, all are ways of remembering. They bring you back into conversation with your own essence, for when you live in remembrance, you walk in protection. When you live in awareness, you walk in grace. Think about how easily we forget this. How often we treat sleep as a pause in productivity, rather than a sacred return to wholeness. We close our eyes, but not our worries. We rest our bodies, but not our minds. We surrender our breath, but not our control, and so we wake, still weary, still searching for meaning. Yet Cayce's teaching whispers that renewal is not found in the hours of rest, but in the consciousness with which we enter them. When you touch your feet, when you apply that humble clove with care, you are saying to the universe, I am willing to rest in truth. And truth, like a patient river, begins to flow through every part of you. There is a tenderness in this realization. We begin to see that spiritual protection is not about fear, but about intimacy. The intimacy of knowing oneself as part of something vast and benevolent. It's about trusting that the same intelligence that spins the planets also animates your breath. When you honor that connection, you become untouchable, not because you have built walls, but because you have dissolved them. Light needs no armor, it simply is. The garlic on your skin is just a reminder of that radiant simplicity. The great mystics always taught that symbols exist only to lead us back to the essence they represent. Once the essence is remembered, the symbol can be released. In time, you may find that you no longer need the clove of garlic because the awareness it awakened has taken root within you. You may find that each breath becomes a cleansing, each thought a blessing, each step a prayer. This is the evolution of ritual. It begins as a gesture and ends as a state of being. What was once physical becomes vibrational. What was once a practice becomes your nature. Perhaps this is what Cayce foresaw, a humanity that would one day remember that it is not separate from the divine, that every act of love, every moment of gratitude, every conscious breath is already a form of prayer. The garlic, the touch, the night, they were all metaphors for a deeper truth, that the divine doesn't live above us or beyond us, but within us, waiting to be remembered through our simplest acts of care. So tonight, when you stand at the edge of sleep, don't think of the ritual as something old or strange. Think of it as a doorway. Each night you step through it, leaving behind the noise of the world and returning to the soft rhythm of your soul. Feel the coolness of the air, the weight of your body on the bed, the steady beat of your heart. These are your anchors to the present moment, the true sanctuary where healing begins. If you listen closely, you may even feel the earth itself breathing beneath you, whispering through your feet. You are safe. You are seen. You are home. And that ultimately is what every ritual seeks to remind us of, that we belong, that our pain, our joy, our confusion, and our longing are all part of a single great unfolding. The garlic may cleanse, but it is love that sanctifies. The act may protect, but it is awareness that frees. To live consciously is the greatest protection of all, for when we walk in truth, no shadow can linger. When we remember our divine nature, fear dissolves like mist under the sun. Perhaps that is the true forgotten ritual, not the one involving garlic, but the one involving presence. The ritual of living each day as a prayer, of treating every touch, every breath, every encounter as sacred. To live as Cayce taught is to become your own healer, your own prophet, to walk gently through the world, carrying light in your steps and peace in your heart. The garlic on the feet was only ever a beginning. The real transformation happens when you realize that the temple of the soul is always open, always luminous and always calling you inward. And so as this reflection draws to its quiet close, let us return to the image of the Pharos, the lighthouse that does not chase ships, but simply shines. Let this be your reminder. You are that light. You need not seek protection when you are already radiance itself. You need only to remember. Tonight, before you sleep, perhaps you'll reach for a clove of garlic. Perhaps not. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you pause, that you place a hand over your heart and whisper to your soul, I am here. I remember. That single act of awareness will carry you further than any ritual ever could. For in that moment, you are aligned with everything, the earth beneath you, the breath within you, and the divine presence that has never once left your side. And when you wake, may you carry that silence with you, not as a memory, but as a way of being. For the world does not need more rituals. It needs more hearts that remember how to live them.